change your mind. Coming in. Coming in for a landing.
Forget about it. I'm driving with my knees.
Yeah, they make Don't jump.
Lake trout and coaster brook trout appeared suddenly from behind boulders in the clear cold water on shallow shoals to chartreuse streamers on the north shore of Lake Superior. Reckless abandon, wanton murder, like a hobo to a ham sandwich, like hippies to whippets, a boombox and a backpack, like black coffee and a plain hamburger at a greasy spoon around noon. Kids call Xanax landing gear these days, and that's a clever metaphor. And if there's one thing young people are good at, it's clever metaphors. But I bet they couldn't explain to you about metaphors. I'm not sure I can explain to you about metaphors. Lots of words are metaphors, maybe all of them, because it's hard to say how a word can refer to anything at all, literally. Everything is a mess of sense and reference, naming and necessity. What is synonymy? My favorite part of fishing with other people is the nonsense talk. Weird accents, odd catchphrases, invented characters with generational backstories of war and triumph, love and loss, death and despair, murder and thieves, pigeon coops and musky-tooth wampum, Kitech executives in town with a group of local guides engaging in a sexual bacchanalia on Blowjob Island. Those freaky-deaky swim baits are that way for a reason, and it has nothing to do with non-metaphorically catching fish. Yeah! Yeah, dude! He's a little messed up. It was 1958, and they had been in Port Arthur that Saturday at the Sears and the mall doing back-to-school shopping. Gord Sr. wore a plain shirt and tie but no jacket, as it was a hot August day. His wife Margaret had on a pale red dress with a white collar, chunky white earrings, and her hair was done up and capped in a small white hat pinned jauntily to one side. Yeah! 8-year-old Gord Jr. wore matching shorts and a short-sleeved button-up shirt in a honeydew color with brown dress shoes and tall white socks. He squirmed in the backseat of the Pontiac Pathfinder in the heat as the car drove slowly out of the city. Yeah. That's icy. Gord Sr. had worked at the Brompton Pulp and Paper Mill as an operator. And when the St. Lawrence Corporation came in, he was promoted to foreman, and he bought a new car and started dating Margaret Elizabeth Randall in the summer of 1950. And in August, they were on a picnic on the shores of Nipigon Bay below Red Rock when Margaret told Gord about her grandfather's discovery of a man-sized piece of float copper with a giant agate embedded in the top of it in Nipigon Lake before the river was dammed, and how he laid his hands on it and he could see through the eyes of a moose and could feel the spruce boughs brushing up against his massive antlers, and he could feel the weight of its dewlap swinging back and forth, and he was compelled to the rock every day, even though it was a long walk from his logging camp, and he was compelled to touch it until the river was dammed, and it was too deep then, and it was too big to move, and so it was lost. And Gord said, "That sounds like crazy mumbo jumbo, Peggy." But Margaret thought it was true and said her grandfather was a strange, sad man until the day he died.
This is my perception of myself. It's got a modern fucking thing on it. Is it for people to like
tie off to? Yeah, maybe. Good. Perfect. Got it.
Like the caption, when after you send that to me and salmon season rolls around, it'll be like, head into Pulaski.
The big Pontiac rolled slowly out of town and past the new A&W drive-in, and Gord Jr. piped up, "Let's stop for a hamburger and root beer, Dad, please." Gord Sr. answered angrily, "I told you once before, Gord Jr., and I won't tell you again. We got Laker meat at home." Margaret turned around and looked at Gord Jr. with wide eyes and made a silent shushing expression. Gord Sr. lit a cigarette and shook his head slowly from side to side. "If young Gord doesn't start to listen better, Peggy, I'm telling you, I'm going to take him behind the woodshed and wear out his hide."
It's been a long time since I paddled.
Yeah, you've been oaring too long. You forgot how to canoe.
That made oars.
Them me daughters.
One's me wife and one's me mother.
Yeah.
That's actually a...
Oh, it's a geode.
Geode, yeah. That's probably an agate in that. That beach that I went on, that's what it's known for. You know, you couldn't hunt them because it was so deep.
He pulled hard on his cigarette and blew out the smoke loudly. Gord Jr. smiled a little and looked at the floor. He ran his hands lightly over the ribs of the quilted, upholstered backseat bench, and it made his little fingers dance. "What is that noise, Gord Jr.? Stop it!" In 1968, Gord and Margaret purchased a small property on the backside of St. Ignace Island on Lake Superior. Gord Jr. was at college down in Guelph, and they expected he would never live again in northern Ontario. They wanted a place to spend their retirement, and they both enjoyed the solitude. In 1969, after their cabin was built, Gord was running a trap line at Otter Lake when he saw something glimmer gold in the shallows in the distance. As he worked his trap line, he could see it was a float copper obelisk, rounded and polished to a near-perfect shine on the top, with an odd rocky protuberance out of the corroded green side just under the surface of the lake.
Hi, Gord.
Hey, Gary, have you left yet? Over?
No, I'm still here for another hour probably.
Okay, later on I'm going to phone Abba for a little bit of a grocery order. Anyway, when you get in telephone range, or let her know what time she should come and give it to you. Over.
Yeah, no problem, will do.
He waded out to it and saw it was an agate the size of a human head cleaved in two, revealing a near-perfect pentagram made up of thousands of intricate, glassy, angled bands in brown and red and white.
Oh yeah. Improved boat wrap.
He had never seen anything like it, and he laid one hand on the top of the object and tasted metal in his mouth. He reached out and laid his other hand on it, and there was a sensation like the slow, persistent calcification of his brain. And then, suddenly, he was a moose. There is no other way to describe it. He was standing in water up to his belly, grazing. He could feel the flies buzzing around him. He was aware of his quivering hide on his right shoulder, disturbing the flies and caused them to take flight. Gord went back to it again the next day, and then as often as he could after that. He didn't tell his wife. He secretly used it to inhabit a giant cow moose. He would gaze at the moose reflection in the lake and spend hours inspecting every inch of her nose, of its firm length, of the tendons he would make tense and then relax beneath the skin. He would marvel at the soft, rounded transition to the novel narial region. He would articulate the exotic nostrils, slowly from closed to open and back again, through wildly foreign and highly derived musculature, with great fascination and with a surprising, pleasant stirring in his loins. He would stare at the exquisitely small rhinarium and wish he could touch it with his human fingers, that he could palpate this tiny, moist button. He would consider himself extremely fortunate if, when he inhabited her, she was standing next to a large, flat, wet rock, in which he could make out the reflection in profile. He would admire her Rubenesque form, the voluptuous curve of her hips, her rump. He would pray for the rare, electrifying glimpse of the hot white vulva patch, private, nearly secreted away beneath the tail and surrounded by a thick pillow of dense brown fur. Gord liked to think he was a moose nose guy, a refined, moose-specific kink that he could be proud of. But he knew it wasn't true. He was a common, down-and-dirty vulva patch pervert. This autoerotic, interspecific lust, of course, strained his relationship with Margaret. He was no longer able to even feign sexual interest in her, and she tried to chalk it up to their expanding ages, but she knew there was something more, that it had to do with the distant look in Gord's eyes that she'd seen in her grandfather, too. Are the moose obelisks only in lakes, or is there one on the original banks of the Nipigon River at Split Rock, 50 feet below the deceivingly placid currents of the modern-day flow? Is there one at Virgin Falls? Is there one entombed in the concrete of Pine Portage Dam?